I'm 60 years old and I've saved $1.8 million, which I feel like is a ton of money. Why can't I retire yet? I got asked this very question last week by a prospective client. And in today's episode, I'm going to walk you through why she was still unable to retire even though she had over $1.8 million of retirement savings. Hey, this is Adam Olson. I'm a financial planner with Mutual of Omaha, and my job is to help you live your best financial life today. And in this episode, I'm going to highlight some key issues that most retirees don't think about when they're creating their financial plan. So let's get started with this particular case. So this lady came in, she's a little over 60 years old, and she had $1.8 million in savings. But after we really dug into her situation, we figured out she was still unable to comfortably retire. And in this video today, I'm going to walk you through some things that she forgot to think about when she was trying to retire. Now, $1 million seems like a lot of money, and it should be enough for you to retire, right? That's what most people think, but it comes down to a lot of things. What's your lifestyle like? What expenses do you have? What debt do you have? And really, what do you want out of your retirement? So the purpose of this episode, I want to highlight financial and lifestyle issues that prevent people like you from retiring, even if you have millions of dollars saved up. So let's dig into this potential client a little bit more. She was a professional. She was divorced, a little over 60 years old. She's currently making about $250,000 a year, but she has 12 years left on her mortgage. She has a significant car loan, and she has $1.8 million saved. Now, after we dug into her budgeting, she spends about $12,000 a month. And once she's 67, she'll get a little over $3,000 a month in Social Security. But she still has a shortfall, even with what we can project retirement income from her portfolio plus Social Security. She still has a shortfall from that $12,000 a month income need that she has. So she has to work longer because she's unwilling to lower her lifestyle. Now, I will add that a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about today are highlights of chapters inside of my book, The Red Zone Retirement Plan. So this book, The Red Zone Retirement Plan, it gives you step by step what you need to do when you're 5 to 8 years out from retirement to make sure that we're not having this conversation when you're 60 and you want to retire because you're sick of work. So let's dig into this right now. What was the first thing? The cost of living. That's what most people don't think about, is the cost of living when they go to retire. And our client was not thinking of this either, because she still has 12 years left to pay on her mortgage, and she lives in a large metro area which has high taxes, which causes her insurance to be high as well. So here's a breakdown of some of these common things that people forget to plan for. The housing in retirement. If you still have a mortgage, that's not ideal. But even if you don't have a mortgage, do you have to pay rent if you're renting a property? In addition to that, guess what? When you retire, your property taxes, your insurance, and your maintenance and upkeep don't stop. So don't think that just because you retired, your housing expenses are going to go away. In addition to that, don't forget about your healthcare cost. You still have to pay for insurance, and you're going to have medical expenses when you retire as well. In addition to that, she wasn't taking into account really her monthly income need of $12,000. After we dug into it, we figured out it was $12,000, but off the cuff, she thought it was about $7,000 or so. So you need to be figuring out what your monthly expenses are. Dial it down to the dollar, average it out over the year, and figure out that's how much income that you're going to need in retirement. In addition to that, where you're living in retirement really affects how far your money goes. So if you have saved up a ton of money and you're still unable to retire like she was, maybe you can move to a different community, a different state. Maybe a lower cost home that you can move into that can really help accelerate your retirement. Let's move into number 2. I want to dig into this one a little bit more. This particular prospect did have some health issues that are going to continue to cost her several $1,000s per year in retirement. So a common misconception is that once you get on Medicare, once you're 65, that all of your medical costs are going to be covered. Now, Medicare is decent health insurance, and it does cover a lot of things, but you're still going to have out-of-pocket medical expenses, and you have to plan for those at retirement time. If you don't, you might not like the way your portfolio looks in 3 to 5 years if you've taken out more distributions than you've planned for. In addition to that, she did not have a plan for long-term care. What I mean by this is this. As people age, it's very, very common that we're going to have some type of long-term care need, whether it's home health care, assisted living, or nursing home coverage. She didn't plan for that earlier in her life, and because of some health issues, she was unable to qualify for long-term care insurance. So we have to go another avenue to try to get her coverage. Let's move on to number 3. The thing that she neglected to think about is number 3 here, withdrawal rate issues. So this particular client, all of her money was in stocks. Every single investment that she had was in the stock market, which is honestly way too risky for somebody that's looking at retirement, let alone, in my opinion, way too risky for anybody that's even 5 years out from retirement. So we really needed to diversify her portfolio. In addition to that, she thought that she could take out about 8% a year from her portfolio, which is not going to happen. 8% per year, a distribution rate from your portfolio, is not sustainable when we're planning on a 30-year retirement. So what we had to do is we had to dial back her risk a little bit, and we had to diversify her investments. Having all of your investments in the stock market is way too risky, because if the stock market comes down by 20-30%, which can happen, your entire portfolio comes down by 20-30%, which is not ideal. And this is what I will say. Diversification in retirement is key. Having lifetime income in retirement is key, and having a flexible withdrawal strategy in retirement is key. So we had to switch things up for her there. The number 4 thing. This is the 4th thing that she really neglected to think about, and that you might be neglecting to think about too. What are your debt and your financial obligations? So I talk this all the time, that really going into retirement with no debt is awesome. If you can enter retirement with no debt, that really puts less strain on your income needs month over month over month. So she had a little over 12 years left on a mortgage and a car loan. In addition to that, is she did help out the kids and the grandkids each and every month. Now, through our conversation, she said, I don't want to stop any of that. I want to keep doing what I'm doing. Okay, that's totally fine. Then we're just going to have to work a little bit longer so that you can comfortably retire and keep your lifestyle intact. So don't forget, if you have debt in retirement, you still have to service those debt payments at retirement time. The 5th thing that she really wasn't thinking about was longevity risk. Again, we have to plan for a 30-year retirement for somebody that's looking to retire when they're 60. And with all of her money in stocks, it was way too aggressive. So we had to de-risk the portfolio, which honestly, the less risk we take, the less possibility for a gain. In addition to that, she didn't have that long-term care plan in place. We have to have some plan to pay for that future potential long-term care cost. So because we had to de-risk the portfolio, and because we had to slice out some money to help cover long-term care in the future, again, those were a couple other factors that caused her to have to work a little bit longer. The next thing that she didn't think about was lack of guaranteed income streams. So sure, she'll have access to Social Security when she's older. About 67 is when her benefit's going to start, and she'll get about $3,000 per month from her Social Security. But she didn't have a pension, and she didn't have any annuities that offer her guaranteed lifetime income. You see, that's one of the keys to retirement, is guaranteed lifetime income. So in my book, The Red Zone Retirement Plan, I talk about this a lot. I talk about having your basic living expenses covered by guaranteed sources of income. So think food, shelter, clothing, insurance, taxes. If we can get those basic necessities covered by guaranteed sources of income like Social Security, pensions, and annuities, that really takes a lot of risk off the table for you at retirement time and allows you to live a more comfortable retirement because your basic living needs are covered. So don't forget, you need to have guaranteed income sources in retirement time too. Now, this was a big one that a lot of people really forget to think about, is taxes. So literally every dime that she had for investments was not only in the stock market, but guess what? It was all in pre-tax accounts as well, meaning that every time we pulled a dollar out for her to spend at retirement, guess what? Taxes. In addition to that, Social Security. Up to 85% of her Social Security benefit is going to be taxable because of the income that she needs each and every month. So we can't really do much about this now because she still has a high income at $250,000. And when she turns off income eventually in 2 to 3 years, we're going to turn on portfolio income. So there's not much of a Roth conversion strategy that we can do because she's already in such a high income tax bracket. But if you're listening to this and you're 10, 15, 20 years out from retirement, I would highly encourage you to not only diversify your portfolio, but diversify what type of accounts you have. I would highly encourage you to look at Roth investments or maybe an index universal life strategy to set yourself up with some potential tax-free income at retirement. Taxes are not fun to pay when you're retired and you have a limited sources of resources coming in, so pay the taxes while you're still working. And the last thing that she really neglected to think about was this. Yes, $12,000 a month is the current income need that she's going to have, but what's that income going to be in 10 years? What's that income need going to be in 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years? You see, we have this wonderful thing called inflation. And what that means is that the cost of goods, the cost of living, the cost of everything goes up each and every year. I mean, look back to 2020. The cost of my grocery bill was significantly less in 2020 versus what it is today. And so because we're planning for $12,000 a month for her today, we need to plan to give her raises each and every year to keep up with inflation. And so if you haven't accounted for inflation inside of your retirement income plan, you need to do that. Because even with inflation at 3% and you have that 30-year retirement, you're going to look at your cost of living more than double at that point of time for the basic needs that you have inside of your household. So please, if you're planning to retire, figure out inflation and figure out how you're going to increase your paychecks over time. So let me recap again. The client had done an excellent job at saving. She says $1.8 million saved for retirement, but there's some things that she forgot to think about. Number one, the cost of living. Where you live really has a high impact on how much income you're going to need in retirement. And so maybe she can relocate or downsize in retirement to speed that up. Number two, she really underestimated healthcare costs. So Medicare does cover a lot of things once you're 65, but she's still going to have some out-of-pocket costs because of some medical issues. Number three, she had way too much money in the stock market. Every dime that she had invested was in the stock market in pre-tax accounts. We needed to de-risk the portfolio, which anytime we take risk off the table, we're going to sacrifice some returns. But when you get to a certain age, it gets more important to protect what you have versus to grow what you have. One risk outweighs the other. Number four, she still had some debt that we had to service in retirement time, in addition to helping out the kids and grandkids. We needed to account for that. Number five, longevity risk. If you retire at 60, you better plan for a 30-year plus retirement. And we also needed to plan for her long-term care needs, which again, took some of those assets off the table for her income. Number six, she really didn't have a pension in place from work or any other annuities that were going to offer lifetime income. And again, I talk about this in my book, The Red Zone Retirement Plan, having a pension, annuity, and Social Security fixed income sources to cover your basic needs in retirement time. That's going to be a huge win for you if you can do that. And then lastly, we talked about a couple other things, taxes. Every single dollar that she had to spend in retirement time was going to be taxable. In addition, she was in a high income tax bracket right now because she was single. She was single, filing single tax return. So she was making $250 a year, high tax rate, plus she's going to be in a high tax rate in retirement time. We really couldn't do much from a strategic standpoint right now. But if you're listening to this and you haven't retired yet, start shifting some money into your Roth account or a life insurance strategy for income tax-free income at retirement time. And lastly, that wonderful thing that we all forget about, inflation. Our cost of living is going to go up every year once we retire. And so we need to plan how we're going to pay for that as the years go on inside of your retirement. So in all, if she would have caught my book, The Red Zone Retirement Plan, say maybe 7, 10, 12 years ago, she could have made some small tweaks at that time, such as getting her Roth account fully funding, getting her long-term care policy in place before the health issue happened, really starting to nail down some debt, nail down some loans that were being repaid, and really kind of wean the kids off of her paying for a lot of things for the kids. So if she could have made those small tweaks 12 years ago, I promise you, she would have been in a way better financial spot at 60 looking to retire than she is right now. So if you'd like a free copy of my book, The Red Zone Retirement Plan, just drop me a message or drop me an email. I'd love to send you out a free copy. In addition to that, if you need help creating your retirement income plan and you haven't planned for a lot of these issues that I just talked about today, such as taxes, inflation, long-term care, longevity risk, drop me a message. I'd love to connect with you and schedule a meeting where we can create a personalized Red Zone retirement plan for you to help set you up for a great financial future. I hope you enjoyed this episode today and stay tuned for more from the Money Master Unleashed podcast. This podcast is for educational purposes only and may include references to concepts that have legal and or tax implications. It's not to be construed as legal or tax advice. Such information or opinions is subject to change without notice and is not intended to use as an offer or solicitation with respect to the purchase or sale of any security, insurance products, or offer of individual investment advice. Any strategies discussed may not be suitable for everyone. Mutual of Omaha Investor Services, Inc. does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your appropriate professional regarding your personal situation prior to making any financial decisions. Securities and advisory services offered through Mutual of Omaha Investor Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Riser Insurance is not affiliated with Mutual of Omaha Investor Services. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Diversification does not guarantee a profit or protection lost against loss in a declining market. Purchase of life insurance is subject to meeting underwriting requirements. There is no guarantee of an individual will be insured. Annuities are long-term investments designed for retirement purposes. Withdrawals of taxable amounts are subject to income tax, and if taken prior to 59.5, a 10% federal penalty tax may apply. Guarantees are backed by the claims paying ability of the issuer and are subject to their terms and conditions.